Peter Toltz. I was born in France in 1981. So, what happened since then, I don't know. Time just passes.
So what are you doing in Australia?
I was in Spain. I was living in Spain and studying in Spain in 2003 for 1 year, so 2002, 2003. I was studying Spanish linguistic with art history and philosophy and philology. And on the month of May, while I was having my exams, I met a guy, and he was, well, he has become my husband. He is. And yeah, it was not expected, obviously, to meet an Australian guy in Madrid, being French myself, not having lived there much time, and so we lived in Barcelona for a while, and then moved to Paris, where we lived there, and then moved to Australia in 2004. And since then I've been here. Australia, what my impression is, I mean, it's hard to talk about a country in its whole and say the Australians are like that, the French are like that, but I think there's some interesting differences. Like, for example, that I think Australians is not a false term when they say they're laid back, they're more relaxed. It's the reality, and the French in comparison are much more stressed and a bit more angry and annoyed easily, whereas the Australians, I think in general, when you come here as a foreigner, you will be surprised how nice and gentle and positive people are. So I met Steve, my husband, in Madrid. We were communicating in Spanish because my English wasn't, I couldn't communicate in English. I knew a little bit of English, but not much. So the first few months were quite interesting because I was talking in Spanish with him, but I realized after 3 or 4 months that he actually didn't understand me. So that was very handy in our relationship. But it actually helped, because any kind of misunderstanding we could have had if we were speaking the same language, we were saying, well, that it's the language barrier. Whereas maybe if I was an English-speaking person, we would have had an argument. He's a writer himself, so he's an artist as well. He is very he encourages me a lot, the same way I encourage him. All my family are in France, and I was born there. I left home quite early. I went to live in Vienna when I was 18 and lived there for a year, traveled to Eastern Europe, studied in Vienna, studied art in Vienna and art history and modern philosophy, and traveled in Eastern Europe, then came back to France, continued the degree in Strasbourg, where I kind of was based, and in 2002 decided to go to Madrid and then Australia. But then in 2007 Steve and I went to live in New York, where I studied art in the New York Studio School.
Welcome to today's episode of Coffee Break, and today I'm here in Downing Street, Balmain, at a wonderful gallery called Art at Home, and there's a very, very beautiful exhibition happening until the 5th of November. So come and meet Elizabeth, who's the curator and manager of the Art at Home gallery. Elizabeth, thanks for inviting me around to this wonderful exhibition. Can you tell us a little bit of background to it, please?
Well, the name of the exhibition is Enigma Variations. So it started with works about motherhood and children, and it then progressed to women and female psychology. So the artist didn't really have a choice when she was painting about mums and all the issues us mums are confronted with. It thrust her into wanting to paint about women and what goes on with women in today's society, really. So she's got a lot to say. Her works do make references to a lot of poets, famous Spanish plays, symphonies. Well, Enigma Variation is from a symphony, so there's a lot to say, and the works have a lot of meaning and a lot of layering. But we do have Marie here today to talk a little bit about the work.
So you manage the gallery, you're a mum with 2 small children yourself.
I am.
And you're also a curator.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background in the art world?
Well, I did my visual arts diploma 15 years ago, many years ago. And from that, I was in England at the time. And after I'd finished studying, I had to actually work. And so I ended up tour guiding, and that took me, well, what I loved about tour guiding was I followed the footsteps of a lot of avant-garde artists throughout Central Europe. So I was very lucky in going to all the galleries and different salons that they had shown their work, and that's where I was inspired to open a salon-style gallery in Australia, so I can have that beautiful feeling of being in a comfortable environment and talking matters of the heart with my artists.
Because your gallery is in your home, isn't it?
Well, that's right, but we do live in the area, so we have used a terrace house, the downstairs of a terrace house, the 2 front rooms, which is traditionally the living room and the dining room, and the front part of the hallway as the gallery.
I love your chandeliers.
Yes, we tried to keep it in the feeling of a salon. We didn't go spotlights, and no, it's not the most appropriate for a modern gallery, but we're not that. We're old-fashioned. So, and the lighting is just beautiful against the artworks, and any works that have been shown here just come up beautifully in the space.
Can you tell us a little bit of background to this artist, please?
She's a beautiful French lady who is based in Sydney, and she started painting quite a few years ago. She had her first exhibition in Sydney last year at Dank Street, and that's where we met. And she's done different studies, art history, and yeah, she's come to Art at Home with her beautiful paintings. She's going to stay here for a while to do some more work, and I feel that she's very much inspired by Sydney landscape, and it shows in some of her works and strong colours used. But this body of work, was actually produced in Paris.
It has a very Parisian flavour.
Yes, it does, yes, because she, like I said, is French. However, if you spend time with the works, you will find that, the ones behind me, Material is about a famous Spanish play. So if you spend time and look at them, you can actually see the Spanish influence. So it's very cultural. The paintings have a lot of different layers of cultures in them, but yeah, so they are very good, and she's here to stay with us for a while. The name is Enigma Variations, and Marie, it's a symphony, but Marie decided to go with that name more in lines of leaving the viewer entering a state of enigma, just sort of wondering what the work is really about, because when you do look at the works for a while, you start thinking and reflecting on your own life and issues, and basically you have to have your own interpretation. So you are left wondering, what is she really trying to say?
So Marie, they're really lovely works. Can you tell me what inspired you?
Well, as Elizabeth was saying, my last body of work was very much concentrated in the idea of motherhood and identity. And both of these exhibitions, especially Enigma Variation, has I want to explore more female identity, but in a more centered way, female sexuality and power, which is the two strong concepts in this show.
So could you take us on a little tour of your artwork, please?
Yes. So these two behind me reflect that concept I was saying about female identity and in the sense of more sexuality and power. It's the same girl in different situation. She's called Martyria, and she's a character of a Lorca play called La Casa de Bernarda Alba. I lived in Spain for a year, and I'm fluent in Spanish, and Spanish culture is very important for me. And well, last year I traveled to Paris to paint these body of work. I was thinking a lot about Lorca and his view of women and how he depicts female psychology. The title of this painting is I Can Only Wish to Stay. It's a title in English. English is not my mother language, but I do feel in English and think in English. My husband is Australian, and we communicate in English, Spanish and French. So depending on, painting is a very much unconscious. I think Paul Auster said that about his writing, how writing, it's almost impossible to talk about writing because it's an unconscious process. So the artistic elements of the creative process is unconscious. So in this painting, it evolved a lot. It has many layers that have been covered with paint, and I've used many varnishes and changed the composition many times. We can see the study on the other room and how it evolved. They were both quite inspired by the Bathers, Cézanne. I was looking a lot at Cézanne while I was painting these paintings. This one is called Sharp Angel. It is the last painting I did before I left Paris, in my studio there, obviously. So it has an element from that painting. So there's three same image that I have explored, that a woman exposing her breasts, and it was quite important for me to show that painting because it was the last strong artistic impulse I had before I left, because I had to pack everything up and come to Australia. This painting is called Sharp Angel with Faces. How to talk about the painting process? Very difficult, isn't it? Obviously we can see there's 4 women in the room. There's one girl undressing in the corner, and she reflects that girl here that is opening her breast, and then we have the other girl here that is looking back. Viewer can travel in that direction. The painting process is about painting, So when I started that painting, I had an idea, and that was a completely different painting. It started off with that figure being very small into a very large space, and then I realized that the painting demanded that this figure needed to be bigger, and so it's about color and form meeting, and then the image is there, and you have to deal with this image even though you had another idea for the painting. This one is called I Carry You in My Heart, I Carry It in My Heart. I carry you in my heart, I carry it in my heart. So we can see it's a mother and a child. I did a series of this imagery, but very different. The child being in the other position, the other painting is not here. Here it's about the love that is between the mother and the child is just asleep, and it's that connection, and I wanted that arm very strongly to carry that child. When I arrived in Australia in 2004, I was quite intrigued with the child-centric society. Australia is quite a child-centric society. With there's a baby boom happening right now as we're speaking, and there's a program for the baby bonus. And I feel that when I arrived here, I thought it would be very interesting to explore those women that have decided to have children and those women that have decided not to have children, and how it has an effect on society. And Australian society is quite based on children and having a home, and I wanted to paint those women. My last show had a couple of pregnant girls, and then I wanted to paint the baby, because the baby is, the creation. And these two are babies, It's a reference to Renaissance paintings and Baroque paintings, This painting is called Alice, and this one is called Lupe. So Alice is a character of Alice in Wonderland, we know that, but the girl that I painted, actually her name is Alice, and I really love Charles Blackman's series on Alice in Wonderland, and this painting was actually a room before, and it evolved after many layers of paint, and the girl just appeared to be much stronger, floating in this blue sky, and we don't really know, is it a dream or is it real? Lupe is she could be from another era as well, because she's having we don't know, like she's dressing with this white dress and with a flower in her hand. Maybe she's a little bridesmaid, or we don't know. That's her story. These are called Chevalier. Chevalier 1, Chevalier 1, Chevalier 2, and Chevalier means knight, and I wanted to keep the enigmatic and ambiguity of the boy with the hat. It was actually a girl and had long hair before, so then I cut the hair, and I kind of liked the strength in this boy's eyes, and we could imagine that if she or he was taking off his hat, we wouldn't know, is it a boy or girl? This one is called Short Days, Short Nights, Short Years. That's life, isn't it? That's how I feel about life. It's too short, and That's a self-portrait. I was dressed up with like a fairy dress from a costume from a very chic boutique in Paris, and we did a whole day of photo shoot in the studio that I was working in, and this evolved from a drawing and a previous study that we can see in the other room. This one is called La Boda de Sangre, Blood Wedding. It's as well the title of a play by Lorca. And so behind the curtain, we can imagine that this character got married and is maybe trying to hide with her memories. This one is called Women Alone with Herself. It is a little reminder of Nietzsche's book, Man Alone with Himself, and I wanted to make my version of that philosophical statement, but as a woman, and that's the painting. This painting is called Freud's Armchair, and we can see it's a room that is quite long, and the girl is pushing with the tip of her foot, is pushing the armchair, and the idea was that the armchair continues the story. We can see in a lot of paintings there's the armchair, and it's all the painting process is really, especially for me, there's never an image that I think this is the image, I want to paint it. It evolves over many layers of paint and destructions and rebirth, and that armchair was actually bigger, and then I wanted to push it away on that corner of the rectangle, and I thought had that movement of maybe freeing yourself from it, because we can see the armchair all around the show. You can see probably in some of the paintings, or hopefully in all the paintings, my interest for theatre, literature, poetry, philosophy, and I think all those arts or art forms relate to each other. I tend not to dream for future so much, because I think life is so unexpected that I live in the moment as much as I can. I try to have a studio everywhere I go, and I think the next step for us will be New York again, and Australia is always our home.
I just quickly wanted to mention that a lot of these works are of Marie, coming into other elements and stages of her life and other women's life. And when I mentioned earlier that the works were painted in Paris, she had worked in different studios and squats around Paris. So as you can tell with the paintings and the props, there's slight despair and depth, because the environment she was painting in were amongst people that were on the edge of society, and there was a lot going on, a lot of creative people, a lot of people that just weren't coping with life and these issues that she's depicting in her works. So I think she's really nailed it in that she put herself in an environment to create all these emotions in her works, and I think she's accomplished that.